The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. It is time once again for the Hard Rock Empire live here on Twitch and on YouTube on this Sunday evening, July the 13th. We're almost halfway through the month of July already. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. And kind of some different changes in formatting to some of our programming here with our streams. We're going to be seeing more video content coming up. In fact, if you are on our YouTube page, you saw a video pop up this week. You'll start seeing more of that in the days and weeks to come. And obviously, we're going to continue to do the Hard Rock Empire each and every Sunday night. So we hope you'll join us for that once again as we take a look at the best hard rock and heavy metal releases. This week, we'll be talking about the releases of June the 20th. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. I feel like we've talked in the past about how it seems like some record labels group all of their releases together for the same week. I kind of feel like we're dealing with the other end of that this week, where there just wasn't as many releases in general. Like, we've had weeks where there have been over 100 videos on the playlist for us to take a look at, and I think we only had like 60 this week. So a little slimmer pickings than usual, but I think we did pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, I think overall there were definitely some good choices in there, and I do wonder, and I guess we'll find out as we continue on over the next couple of weeks when we get into the end of June and the early July picks, whether there's some sort of natural lull around the middle of the year where you have 4th of July and everything else that maybe they don't want to release albums during that time. I don't know. We certainly found that at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That the last couple weeks of the year are definitely thinner as far as releases, but we'll have to see. Obviously, again, go through Mike's playlist. We'll have it posted in the chat when we get to the music. There's a lot of stuff out there and some different varieties, so you may find something that you like in particular. We were able to find 2 releases each that we want to spotlight on the podcast, but again, it was definitely, I don't want to say it was a thinner week, but it was maybe not quite as strong as some of the weeks we've had in the past. But I mentioned that there was a video up on our YouTube page. We encourage you to check it out. We recorded it earlier this week. It was something new for us when a band had actually asked us, or actually it was a PR firm, I guess, asked us to do a video reaction to a video from Calamity Kills, and we did that, and it is up on our YouTube page. We encourage you to check it out. And, it was, looking back on it, it was definitely something different than what we've done. Everybody does react content, so, I mean, it's why not us as well. But, it's one of those things that I think in the right circumstances I could see us doing more of in the future. But, I honestly, the response has been great. Thank you to everybody who's watched it. But overall, I thought it was a pretty interesting endeavor.
Yeah, music video reactions are kind of different than what I'm even used to seeing, because there's really no logical reason to stop a music video midway through to talk about it. Whereas with so many reaction videos, it's usually longer form content that someone's pausing and weighing in on and then picking back up, or clipping it in certain ways where they're only talking about key points. But yeah, that was a really cool experience, and totally up for doing that again sometime.
As we mentioned in the video, and again, we encourage you to check that out, they will have a full album coming up. I believe it was in September later this year. So when that comes back around, I'm sure we will talk more about their band. But
yeah, I believe September, and then like a vinyl release
the
following April maybe?
Yeah, so big things for that band. So kudos to them, and we certainly encourage you to check them out. And if you're a band out there that wants us to do a reaction of a music video or a new song, we're happy to do that. And we'll put it over on our YouTube page. And, of course, the address for our YouTube page you can see on the screen, assuming you're watching on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, you've already found the right place. You're already here. One other quick note before we jump into news headlines. We mentioned some different formatting. Our Nerdcast news report, as it's kind of constructed, is going to go away, at least for a while. We're going to be bringing news videos to YouTube on a daily basis. Mike and I will be doing that at first, and that could start over the next couple of weeks. And it'll just be us talking about 1 or 2 or 3 news stories in that given day that kind of appeal to us. And we'll put it up on our YouTube page. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, definitely encourage you to do that. That stuff's going to kind of pop up throughout the week. So it's just kind of a way for us to bring you the news. And the plan is, as soon as we kind of figure out the scheduling of it, to bring back the anime podcast. which is something we did for a while, and that would be just like this one, streamed on Twitch and on YouTube. Kind of like the old format where we kind of spotlight anime music. We talk about the anime because Mike's done a really good job, especially of keeping up with a lot of the current anime. So we like to kind of get those thoughts as we go. So yeah, that'll be coming up, and stay tuned for that. And I think it's something that, again, we're always looking for different ideas. And if you have different ideas, join our Discord. I will post the link to our Discord in the chat. We're always open to ideas. And, this one thing about this venture that we're, almost 2 years into now, which is crazy. We want input. We want, people to tell us what they like, what they don't like, because otherwise we're just kind of guessing. And, we're happy to try some different stuff. We just kind of need to know what it is people want to see us try. So definitely let us know. Join the Discord, and it's pinned right now in both chats, so you can stop on over there today. Let's get to news items. And one thing I wanted to change was to kind of reduce the number of news items on our music podcast, because sometimes this gets a little lengthy, and I wanted to maybe save more of the news items for our videos that we'll be doing throughout the week. But I did have one news item that I wanted to bring up because it's a band that we've talked about before on this podcast. It is 38 Special, and they've been doing this for a long time. It turns out that they will be marking their 50th anniversary coming up this year, and they are releasing their first album in 20 years. It is called Milestone. I have an article I'll be posting in the chat from Blabbermouth to talk a little bit about it, but this is one of those bands, Mike, that and I know I'm sure you'll bring it up as well, that went through a lot of different changes as far as their sound. They started very Southern rock, but like so many other bands of the mid to late 80s, they found that AOR type sound, ended up with a big hit song out of it in that era, and then now have kind of gone back to what really made them famous. But it's kind of wild that they haven't released an album in 20 years, and kind of cool that they're getting back after it.
Yeah, absolutely. They've always been a band that's had a certain kind of pop sensibility to them. It's weird when you lean so heavily into the idea that you're a Southern rock band when so much of your material didn't feel all that Southern, not compared to something like a Leonard Skinner, which obviously they have ties to. But this was kind of a cool story. 50 years, they have a new album coming out, Milestone, September 19th. A lot of big names kind of involved, either in the songwriting or in guest appearances. Pat Monahan from Train, Randy Bachman from BTO, Jim Peterick from Survivor, and everything else he's been involved in. He's been a longtime collaborator with 38 Special to begin with, so that's not super surprising that he's on board. I also thought it was kind of interesting that their new album was recorded at Will Turpin's studio. He is the bassist for Collective Soul.
Oh.
So kind of a weird connection there. And they mentioned that Johnny K is doing the mixing on the album. That guy has worked with a lot of big acts. Enough's Enough, Disturbed, Machine Head, Finger 11, Drowning Pool, Three Doors Down, Stained, Megadeth, Seven Dust. So that guy's certainly been around the block a few times. But I did check out the video for All I Haven't Said on YouTube. It's, if you like kind of the less hard side of rock, there's nothing to not like about it.
That's good to hear. I mean, this is a band that, like I mentioned, the songs that obviously you would know from these guys, because they had several big hits. Hold On Loosely, obviously, is probably one of their biggest. Caught Up in You, obviously a huge song as well. But, then, like I mentioned, they had a stretch where they went into more of the AOR side, where, Second Chance became a huge hit for them in that mid to late 80s portion of their history. And, yeah, this is a band that, has persevered. They're currently on tour. They've got shows with Kansas, Dave Mason, The Outlaws, and Jefferson Starship. So that's great to see. I have a bunch of bands there that I've either seen or would like to see on that list as well. And, it's great to see these classic bands not only still around, but finding a way to continue to be relevant in 2025 by continuing to find ways to release new music.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't a band that I've followed all that closely. I do see that Don Barnes has been in the band since day one, essentially. I did also see that Donnie Van Zant quit the band back in 2013 due to some ear issue he was having. So not like he quit out of anger, but just kind of had to pack it in, I guess. But I'm all for these bands coming back around, celebrating big milestones, releasing new music. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. So check those guys out if they are somewhere near you on tour. Definitely go out and support them, and of course, check out their new album, which is really cool. And certainly, we'll look forward to giving that a full listen whenever that comes up. I think a little bit later on this year when the full album is going to be released. So very cool for them. So really cool news to see 38 Special continuing on and releasing new music. Don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. You can listen to previous episodes of the Nerdcast Empire, which, of course, you can also do on our YouTube page where our podcasts are archived. You can watch them on Twitch for about a month after they air originally, and then Twitch cycles them through. We'll be back again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be the music of June the 27th coming up next week, so looking forward to that. So make sure you join us again next Sunday night. But it is time to get to our new music for this week. And, of course, we mention each and every week that Mike will go through and pull a list of all the new albums for a given date. That given date in question this week is June the 20th. And he will take at least one song off of each of those albums and put them on a playlist. And that playlist is being pasted into the chats as we speak. And you can go over to that playlist and be able to basically listen to everything that's on there, every good song, every song that maybe we didn't think was as good. But Mike will go through and mark them all, and then we go through a second time and choose 2 new albums off of that playlist to spotlight for the podcast, which is what we will be doing here. And again, as we mentioned in the open, maybe not the depth this week, but also not a ton of releases this week. So that probably also has something to do with the lack of depth, is just the lack of albums. But still, some really good stuff, and so definitely worth checking out. It is time to get to the new music for this week, so Mike will be kicking things off as always. And what do you got for us first this week?
Yeah, so the first one this week, I feel like we've been seeing more bands from this place lately than I remember, but this is actually an Australian power metal band. It's their 8th full-length album. They are Black Majesty, and the album is Oceans of Black.
Yeah, it's great to see more metal coming out of Australia. It feels like we've had a few lately, and these guys are really good. Definitely excited to have everybody get a chance to listen to these guys.
Yeah, definitely a band that I kind of feel bad I didn't know about up until now. This is their first album since 2018's Children of the Abyss. The band goes all the way back to 2001 under the name Chimera, not Khymera, the band Chimera. This is Kymera, formed by Steve Janevsky and Corey Betts. I thought this was kind of interesting, and maybe I just don't think enough about how the music industry works, but these guys landed a 5-album record deal after just releasing a 3-track sampler.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was pretty wild. Ultimately, they changed their name to Black Majesty, as there was an American band named Chimera, Kymera. Several bands when I did a search on that name, so that's all over the place, but not the one that we know of with the H in the middle of it. But that's not important. I noticed at one point that the Wikipedia page for these guys really isn't up to date, as the founding member Steve Janevsky he left the band back in 2019. He has a new band, Wicked Smile, which he formed basically to focus more on like 70s to 90s era rock music, like Dio, Judas Priest, Queensryche, Skid Row. Apparently that was kind of more his thing. He wanted to step out of more the power metal stuff and into kind of that classic metal, pop metal stuff, which is not a bad thing either. Current lineup consists of Hani Muhammad on guitars and keyboards, John Cavalier on vocals, Evan Harris on bass, Clinton Biddy on guitars, and Zane Kimmy on drums. When you listen to this album as a first-timer, you're not surprised to find out these guys have shared the stage with Hammerfall, Ed Guy, Dragon Force, Nevermore, Halloween, Saxon, very much in that vein. And like I mentioned, to hear these guys have been around since 2001, a time in which I was discovering a lot of the bands just mentioned, it's kind of crazy to me that I never was exposed to these guys. Like, I don't know if that was a matter of the music I was discovering was all via, like, IRC chat room servers, like bots that would basically serve MP3s to people, but I don't know if those people just had a much wider variety of European metal than Australian metal. Maybe that hadn't really proliferated the same way. I don't know, but these guys are really awesome, and I think people definitely need to give them a listen. Standout tracks on the album include Dragon Lord, Set Stone on Fire, Raven, Lucifer, Astral Voyager, and the song that I picked to listen to, the title track Oceans of Black.
Check these guys out. Black Majesty and their new release, Oceans of Black. This is the 6th track off of the album, the title track, Oceans of Black. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, this was one, I don't always get to listen to all the releases beforehand, but this was one that I listened to front to back. And admittedly, like when I heard the track on the playlist, I thought, oh, this sounds all right. Like, I wasn't like, I didn't think it was amazing. But I thought, well, this, I need to listen. And like with every track I listened on this album, I liked it more and more to the point where it's like you get to the end and think, that was awesome. Like, I nearly missed out on this band just because, again, sometimes you're listening to the playlist and maybe you're not 100% focused on it or whatever it may be, but this was really, really good, and if you hadn't picked them, I certainly would have picked them myself. I thought this was just front to back, just an excellent album.
Yeah, I felt like there wasn't any slump midway through,
No.
which you get sometimes. I think that's natural, especially when you're talking a 12-track album, which by modern standards feels like a long album. You don't see, I mean, a lot of what we review and what we listen to is anywhere between like 7 to 9 tracks anymore. So 12 seems like a full-on album you'd release in 1996.
Yeah, and when you have 12 songs, there's that much more of a chance for there to be one that's a weaker track, but I didn't feel that either. I thought it was really, really strong. Maybe,
and especially 8 albums into your career.
Yeah, for sure. You would think maybe you run out of stuff to write about, but no. This was great, and it was great from the beginning to end, and definitely one of my favorite albums that we've listened to this year. So definitely check out Black Majesty and their new album. It is Mike's first pick of this week. As always, Mike has 2 picks each and every week. What do you have for pick number 2?
So for pick number 2, we are heading back to Italy, which seems to be a fairly commonplace in the world of metal these days, which we need more metal hotbeds. Italy's definitely one. Sweden, Australia seems to be becoming one, so that's really cool. But from Italy, we have the 3rd full-length album from this metal band. They are Metal Detektor, and the album is Violence and Pride.
Yeah, Italy is definitely one of those countries that we spend a lot of time in, and these guys, again, I haven't got to listen to this whole album yet, but what I've heard of it, it's really good as well.
Yeah, really solid. I wasn't sure because of the name. I thought the name didn't really stick out at me as like, hey, this is going to be one of those standout albums, but the album certainly impressed me. Again, another band that's been around for a while. Let me make sure I'm not wrong about that, because that sounds like I typed something that may not be accurate. Let's see. I think I'm right. Metal Detektor. Yeah, they've been around since 2000. Just making sure then. That looked weird when I looked at it on this document, even though I typed it. Band formed in 2000. They consist of Massimiliano Elia on bass, Walter Ventura on drums, Yuri Bernardini on guitars, Maurizio Mana on guitars, and JP Hell on vocals. Bandcamp describes them as 5 old-school new wave of British heavy metal and early U.S. metal aficionados who banded together in 2000. The sound of the album would certainly lend credence to that statement. They recently signed with Rude Awakening Records, and on the label's website, they go into detail about the direction on this album, saying, it's a work that continues to explore the roots of pure heavy metal, but at the same time evolves the band's sound with more reflective writing and a narrative that becomes more intimate and personal, deals with themes of violence, resistance, pride, and sacrifice. Yeah, I think it's one thing if you can enjoy the music at like a surface level, but I think to hear them talk about that, and then when you listen to the album, you just think, this gives me even more of an appreciation because you know that what they're writing about has like a deeper meaning to them. It's not just kind of the standard metal tropes and metal themes of of your lyrics. It actually resonates with them on a personal level, and I think it translates to the listener as well. Really cool stuff. Standout tracks on the album include Sister Gone Mad, Grendel Returns, Violence and Pride, Wild Frontier, and the track that I picked to listen to, the song Shadow Runner.
Check these guys out. This is Metal Detektor with their new release, Violence and Pride. This is the third track off of that album, Shadow Runner. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. You know, I feel like has been a lot more music out there that sounds like that than I thought there would still be being produced in 2025. That kind of thrash sound that these guys bring, and it's great because, you know, that would be one of the types of music from the early 80s that I would have assumed maybe just didn't continue on, but these guys got a great sound, and they seem to find a way again to capture that without making it sound dated in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. It just kind of feels like the next evolution of what the new wave of British heavy metal would be bringing. Like musically, it feels a little fresher, but still kind of has that vocal delivery that you'd almost expect from one of those bands from back then. It's wild how many bands are doing it, and then like the subtle differences in what they're delivering, just based on kind of the same influences and how they interpret it. But this is just another example of a band that's current, and they're doing it, and it sounds great.
They're doing it in Italy as well, as it turns out. But really good stuff from Metal Detektor. Definitely check those guys out. Their new release out on June the 20th. I have two picks as well. We have three bands this week that got their start right around the turn of the century in 2000, 2001, 2002. And then we have my first pick, who I'm guessing none of their members were born when any of the other three bands were formed this week. This is a rock trio from Kelowna. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Actually, from British Columbia, Canada.
I believe it's pronounced Canada.
Well, yes, obviously. This is Freeze the Fall with their new EP, The Red Garden. The reason, obviously, I say that I don't think these guys were around when the other three bands were formed is they were formed in 2022 as three high school students. At their core is Quinn Mitzel on vocals and guitars, Aria Becker on bass and vocals, and Jonah Goncalves on drums. This is their second EP. It's a concept album, which is always interesting in an EP format, but it is a fairy tale that is a metaphor for the larger world we live in. From their website, it mentions this EP focuses on the concepts and inevitable loneliness we feel even when surrounded by others because technology and false information consume us, but also reminds us there is hope, that we're all born with a compass of childhood that can lead us toward better choices and deeper empathy. There's a band that has gone through and put like meanings of their songs on their website, which is, one of two ways to go about it. A lot of times you'll see artists that don't really tell you what the meaning of their song was because they want the listener to kind of interpret it for their own. But, this is another way to kind of, connect you with the band, that you kind of see exactly what they were thinking when they wrote the song. And it's just good rock music. Like, again, this is the maybe third or fourth time in the history of this podcast where we've come across a band of young people that are playing, hard rock music. And it's great to see that the younger generations are continuing to find this music inspirational enough that this is kind of the direction they're looking to go. I think their sound will appeal both to more your mainstream rock fans as well as those who want harder rock. But overall, it was really good. And an EP, it was obviously relatively short, 23 minutes for 7 songs. So as far as standout tracks, listen to the whole thing because it really isn't very long. But the song we're going to listen to on the podcast off of that EP will be the song VHS. So let's check these guys out now. This is Freeze the Fall and their new EP, The Red Garden. This is the 4th song off of that EP, VHS. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
So let you love me and your fly. Carve your name into headlines. Not to wait for you to find. Film her cries for life. Always be
Yeah, they have a lot of characteristics similar to some other female-fronted rock bands that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years. But again, it's a little bit heavier than some of those bands as well, which I think really kind of makes it stand apart. And it's kind of wild for 3 people who are maybe just out of high school now, finding early success out in the western part of Canada with their rock music. But Mike, your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I was really impressed by this album. I thought it amazes me that there are young people that actually still want to play this kind of music. I feel like we don't see enough of that, especially here in the West. But yeah, I do see a lot of similarities between a lot of kind of that 2000s female-fronted rock music, which is never a bad thing. I think these guys might actually be a bit heavier than that, though, which is also really cool. But yeah, I'm just excited to see that someone who isn't in their 40s is like, hey, I want to pick up a guitar and play this kind of music.
Yeah, more of that is certainly welcome, and we love finding those bands on this podcast. So definitely check those guys out. Freeze the Fall, their 2nd EP out on June the 20th. As always, I have 2 picks, and we try not to stray too far from the AOR bands that I tend to spotlight on this podcast. So we're headed back to Frontiers. We're headed back to a band that's been around for a while. This is a band that formed in Helsinki, Finland in 2002. This is Leverage with their new album, Gravity. This is their 6th full-length album. This is a band that we're probably pretty fortunate is still around, and the reason being that their singer, Kimmo Blom, passed away suddenly in August of 2022. Band wasn't really sure what they wanted to do at that point. Certainly understandable. They went on a hiatus at that point, and finally the founding member and main songwriter Tuomas Heikkinen decided it was time to give the band another shot. They went out and got Paolo Ribaldini from Delane and violinist Lotta Maria Heiskanen from, I can't remember the band, they didn't list here, but she's a violinist. They brought her into the band as well to try to kind of keep the band going, and they've done an amazing job with this album to do that. In addition to Heikkinen on guitars, you have Marco Niskala on keyboards, Valtteri Revenkorpi on drums, Sami Norbaka on bass, along with Ribaldini and Heiskanen with vocals and violins. It's interesting. They're one of these bands that clearly doesn't want to be pigeonholed. Their Frontiers page was like, oh, we're not a power metal band or an AOR band. Okay, that's fine. But there are definitely elements of both of those things in this album. So if you're a fan of power metal or AOR, you're going to find something here you like. A lot of reviews compared them to the Dio era Rainbow, also Deep Purple, Whitesnake, and even Avantasia. So there's a little something here for everyone, I think, but it's just a really good, whatever you want to call it, rock album. Definitely worth checking out. Standout tracks include Tales of the Night, Moon of Madness, All Seeing Eye, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast is Shooting Star. So let's check these guys out now. This is Leverage with their new album, Gravity. This is the opening track off of that album, Shooting Star. We're going to start with a little bit of the guitar solo, which I thought was worth kind of cutting into, but we'll jump into that and listen to a little bit of it now.
Star.
But yeah, they found a way to kind of keep things going after the passing of their singer, and that's a wonderful thing that they were able to find a new life. And this album is really good, and if it's any sign, it doesn't appear they're going to be slowing down anytime soon. And that's great to see for a band that's clearly still kind of getting over the tragedy of losing their lead singer just 3 years ago. But really good stuff from Leverage. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I only listened to the song from the playlist, but just from that, I kind of had a feeling that this was going to be a really good album. It certainly is power metal.
Yeah, it is. You can call it what you want.
It feels like, and the Avantasia comparison's interesting because I was going to call it like theatrical power metal.
Yeah,
like the vocal delivery is very, and maybe that's why you also get the Dio comparison because it's just over the top and just larger than life. But I think that's good, so I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah, I mean, again, whatever you want to call it, you can call it. And there's definitely some variety on this album. It's not every track sounding like that first track, but it's just really good and it's really catchy. And again, I think if you're a fan of that sound, you're gonna really enjoy the whole album, even though there is some variety in styles throughout the album. But
I'm all for more variety from Frontiers artists. So
yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Good work by Leverage. Really enjoyed their new album. You can check that out this week. That is my second pick of the week. And it's time to head into the vault where Mike and I will give you a classic album that you need to check out. As I mention each and every week, Mike is making a second pass through his vault of CDs and his extensive collection. And it's been a pretty good run, obviously, once again. The second time through the alphabet, we are up to the letter S. And probably this album that you're going to talk about has one of my favorite songs of this entire era of music on it. But it's I would like to go back and listen to this album, but I'll let you tell me about it first. Who do you have and what do you have for the vault this week?
Yeah, so moving into the letter S, it's a pretty crowded letter. A lot of really good artists in my collection that they begin with the letter S. And even kind of my past vault picks would show that as well, because before I actually picked a gimmick for my vault, I was just kind of picking albums at random. And early on, I picked an album from Shadow Gallery, Carved in Stone, one from Scar Symmetry, Pitch Black Progress. Then the first time through the alphabet, I went with Saigon Kick's The Lizard, great album. Then going through glam metal bands, I went with Steeler, their self-titled album, which was also good. So I've visited the letter S numerous times. So kind of scrolling through my collection and thinking of what to pick this time, this one kind of stood out to me because I think it's kind of one of those like overlooked gem kind of albums that you don't hear people talking about, even though if you're talking about great albums from that quote unquote hair metal, pop metal period of time, I think this is definitely one of them. And it's an interesting story because the band, their sound did so many weird things over a 3-album run that it's just kind of crazy. They found this sound and then immediately went 180 in a different direction. But that being said, I am going with the 1991 release from the band Shotgun Messiah. It is their second album, Second Coming.
Yeah, this is a band that, and again, I'm sure part of their changing of sound has to do about when this came out. Obviously, we're talking 1991 for this release, and we've talked, if you've listened to this podcast over the 72 previous episodes, we've talked about how the early 90s was kind of a haven of change for these bands because all of them were trying to find that sound that was going to allow them to continue to be relevant. So for these guys to come out with this album at this time, like, it's great that they were able to find at least one hit song off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And not too surprising that a band that sounds like this comes out of Sweden, because they continued making albums like that in Sweden even after people in America had shifted their taste elsewhere. But yeah, so like I mentioned, this band's pretty interesting because over 3 albums they really didn't have a consistent sound. Second Coming was probably more of a natural evolution from the first album, the self-titled, but it felt more like them making a metal record and not leaning as heavily into the sleaze rock side of things. I mean, this is still sleazy at times, but it still felt differently, and that might be because they had a different lead vocalist. Tim Skold took over vocal duties from Zinny Zan, who had left the band. But after this album, basically the only two people left in the band were Tim Skold and Harry Cody, and they released an industrial metal album as Violent New Breed was the name of it. And it's kind of wild as I read more about this album, because I mean, beyond just listening to it a bunch of times, I didn't really go into the liner notes and really study it. But just to kind of go back into the band's history a little bit, their first album was actually released under the band name Kingpin in Sweden before being remixed and released elsewhere with their new band name Shotgun Messiah. But again, by the end of Second Coming, they had totally went a different direction entirely. This album, Second Coming, did have a hit single, Heartbreak Boulevard, and a second single, Living Without You, which was a great song as well. The Wikipedia page does mention something about it that I didn't realize. Styx Galore is credited as the drummer on this album, but the drums were actually a mix of programmed and triggered drum effects. Galore did apparently record cymbals normally to add a realism to the final product, but it's wild to think at this point in time they were already using like programming to create musical instruments when that next album was pretty much all programmed sounds, more or less. So it was kind of foreshadowing maybe the direction they were heading at that point. After the third album, Skold and Cody would disband Shotgun Messiah. Tim Skold would remain busy, though. He joined KMFDM and MDFMK. And from 2002 to 2008, he worked with Marilyn Manson as a producer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. The band was close to reuniting back in 2019, but evidently talks fell through with Skold's management, who understandably probably saw him as the headliner of the band at that point and wanted his involvement to be limited to guest appearances. Kind of a shame because, like I mentioned, this album here alone is one of my favorite albums of that period. I think it's almost up there with something like Slave to the Grind from Skid Row as far as just great metal records that probably still don't get the love they deserve. Standout tracks on this album include Nobody's Home, Living Without You, Heartbreak Boulevard, I Want More, Ride the Storm, You and Me, and Can't Fool Me.
Yeah, first off, Shotgun Messiah is a great name. Like the decision, whoever decided to change from Kingpin to Shotgun Messiah knew what they were doing, because that is a name that is, one, very American. So obviously for people who might not know that they're from Sweden, Shotgun Messiah sounds like something that would come from an American band, maybe like a Southern rock band, in fact.
Possibly.
But yeah, like I said, I would like to go back and listen to this whole album. It's probably been a while since I've heard more than the couple of singles off the album. As Chris mentioned in the chat, Heartbreak Boulevard to me is maybe one of the top 5 songs of this entire era. Yeah. You mentioned that there's some sleaze there, and there's definitely some sleaze in Heartbreak Boulevard, but there's just a musical sound that comes out of that, the screeching guitars, that's so different than everything else that was released in this era, which some of it got to be very formulaic. Like this was not. And because of that, it's really a shame that this band really couldn't keep it going beyond 93 or whatever year it was that they finally broke up, because it just felt like there was some musical genius in this band somewhere that produced a song like that. And I think you're 100% right. I feel like this is a band that, because of probably the timing, because of the short run there, that maybe doesn't get the credit they deserve compared to some other bands of this era. But these guys were great, and it's just a shame that they didn't have the careers, or maybe didn't get to America a little sooner, and maybe could have gotten a couple of albums more in the 80s. Maybe in that case they find a couple of hits a little earlier, and maybe that gives them the fuel to, or maybe they break up sooner. I don't know, but either way, maybe they find more commercial success if they get here a little bit earlier than when they did, because it was right at the very tail end of when this music was commercially popular here.
I'm kind of looking at it a little further. I see on Manson's album, The Golden Age of Grotesque, Skold does have some writing credits on it, including being a co-writer of the song This Is the New Shit, which was kind of a big song. And then his following album, Eat Me, Drink Me, all tracks are written and produced by Marilyn Manson and Tim Skold.
Oh,
So
wow.
even more kind of influence there. So clearly he had a lot more to contribute to the world of hard rock in that case. But yeah, it just, again, timing. Like, I don't know how many albums in my kind of run up through like glam metal where a band started late, hit in 1991, and then that was about it for them.
Yeah, it's just a shame that they couldn't have got started a little bit sooner. And again, I would say what success they did have probably in the end probably divided them because, like you said, Tim Skold clearly had bigger ambitions than being, a sleaze metal, glam metal, act. He clearly wanted to do bigger and better things, and maybe the rest of the band was riding on. I don't know. You don't know, but.
It makes you wonder, because, I mean, obviously he and Harry Cody were all in on this industrial metal project. Is that just something that they really didn't think about at the time, and then as they kind of penetrated the United States and maybe got some different influences in there, like, hey, I kind of like what these guys are doing, or I don't know. But Violent New Breed for industrial metal is a really good album. It just isn't what you're expecting. It might be one of the more stark departures from biggest album to next album, I think, and it would make an interesting thing to look into, kind of that, go through all of those bands and look at that album where they tried something new and just kind of compare, like, what all did they do and to what results.
Yeah, and varied results. Obviously, there are some bands that survived the era, continue on to this day, release albums every so often, and then there are some that put that next album out and that was it. It was just like, nope.
Like, we talked about Rat a week ago and their self-titled that they had in 1999, where that was definitely not a hair metal album. You had bands like Dokken who went with a much more stripped-down acoustic thing going on. Yeah, everyone did it for the most part, and it can't all be bad, right? Like,
Right.
some of it has, and like Violent New Breed was fine, and I imagine more of it probably is if you listen to it with an open mind.
That begs, and I honestly it begs the question. It maybe presents the idea that maybe another run through the vault next time you find all those albums that are the next album. Like the what's the one that they either tried to hang on or the one where they were
Almost like sellout albums.
Yeah.
We're going to try to chase what is popular.
Yeah, I bet there would be something interesting in listening to all those kind of on a run and just see if you can find some hidden gems in there, some that should have been hits that maybe didn't, and which ones are like, no, like you clearly didn't get it, and that's why you went away or whatever it may be. But interesting stuff. Shotgun Messiah is great. Shame they weren't around longer, but definitely check those guys out. They of course went away in 1993, so they were the one band this week did not have a Facebook page for me to tag, but
Not too surprising.
Not too surprising. So definitely check out Shotgun Messiah. I'm going through the Frontiers bands. We are up to the letter I this week. It is my choice on the letter I. So we are going with a heavy metal band from Los Angeles. It is Impellitteri with their album Venom from 2015. Obviously named after guitarist Chris Impellitteri. Main singer, really for most of their run, has been Rob Rock. He's still with the band. And bassist James Emilio Pulli. The band has sold over 2 million albums worldwide. They released this album in 2015, as I mentioned. At the time, they were on a headlining stage at Rockfest Barcelona alongside bands such as Iron Maiden. They also headlined some shows in South Korea at the time. They've been through some drummers. If you look through their list of band members, they've had lots of drummers throughout the time. Rob Rock has kind of been in and out of the band a couple of times, not for very long, but one of those times, Graham Bonnet was actually brought in to sing for them. Actually, twice, I should say, Bonnet came in to sing for them. But overall, Rock is back with them, has been with them since 2008, and really does deliver in this album. Overall, it's just a great rock album, as you typically get from Frontiers. I definitely encourage you to check it out if you're a fan of the AOR melodic rock type stuff. From Frontiers PR, they say Impellitteri intend to deliver a record filled with addictive and memorable riffs, guitar solos that feature Impelliteri's blistering shredding technique coupled with strong melody and taste, and vocals that are mesmerizing, melodic, and that will make the listeners sing along with each song long after the record is over. I just chuckled because that's such a description that feels like would be written by AI in 2025, but this album was released in 2015,
Yeah.
so a human being actually put that on paper. So kudos to you, PR person from Frontiers, to come up with that. One of their releases listed says for fans of Yngwie Malmsteen, Judas Priest, Royal Hunt, and Primal Fear. So there you go. I mean, it's just really, really catchy stuff. I definitely want to check out more of their stuff because this was really good front to back. Standout tracks include Venom, Face the Enemy, We Own the Night, and Empire of Lies. They did have a new album that released at the end of 2024. I don't think either of us picked that album, but I do remember it being spotlighted as one of the stronger releases of that given week. It could have been a week that was just really, really good. But they're still very active. They're active with Frontiers. I would not be surprised to see them come out with something new either this year or maybe early in 2026. But they still sound amazing, and this is a really good release in 2015, so I definitely encourage you to check them out.
The more interesting thing, and I don't know if you stumbled into this during your research, is that Chris Impellitteri and Marty Friedman worked together on a project.
Why doesn't that surprise me? Like,
Looks like, let's see, did they work together on both of them? Yes, they did. 2 albums, the first one being Animetal USA, and the second one being Animetal USA W. Animetal USA came out in 2011. The W version came out the year later. If you look at the track list, though, I mean, all tracks are arranged by Chris Impellitteri and Marty Friedman, which can't be a bad thing. But, I mean, what more could you ask for? Gachimon no Uta, Makafushigi Adventure.
yeah, I mean, you got to start
Pegasus Fantasy.
You start with the theme to Yamato, obviously, which is amazing. The Fist of the North Star song.
Yes.
Tiger Mask theme, Kinnikuman. That's just the first the first release, and then
Second one's got some
you got Touch right out of the gate,
Yeah.
Cat's Eye, and then
Dragon Ball medley. Chala Head Chala, and We Got a Power.
Yeah, you also had you have a medley of what they call Hero Medley, which included Devilman, the Uta no Devilman, or Devilman no Uta, Kamen Rider, so a bunch of shows like that. Galaxy Express 3-9, the opening theme to Ray Earth, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. Anime, We Are from One Piece. I kind of want this album now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look this up for sure.
A shoujo
Jam Project medley.
Yeah,
You kidding me?
Vanguard, Maxit, and Skill. Skill is a great song. Like, we want to talk about rock songs from Japan. Like, Jam Project's got a few from that era that you downloaded off of this giant collection that included songs like Skill and The Gate of the Hell, and it was just they were. I would love to see them in concert again before they stop touring. But yeah, definitely awesome. I did not get that far into my research, but I'm glad that we have stumbled across that because I definitely need to check those out. But
Yeah, no doubt that's gonna be amazing.
it looks like he's also done some stuff with House of Lords and Mari Hamada. So another one of those guys that's just incredibly talented and clearly must be great to work with because Marty Friedman strikes me as a guy that probably just wouldn't work with anybody. So clearly that's really cool. But yeah, definitely check the Impellitteri out. Again, still active and would
In
expect.
2008, Guitar World magazine named him as one of the fastest guitarists of all time.
Wow.
Dude must be a runner too. Who
Maybe,
knew?
possibly, but really cool. Definitely check those guys out. Still active, still touring, still releasing new music. So definitely check out Impellitteri. That is our vault for this week. It is time to get to the Power Trio, our hard rock hat trick each and every week, where we go through and we choose a category of some kind and we pick 3. Chris gave us the idea for this week, and it was a literal power trio. One we probably should have just started this concept with, but it is a chance for all of us to actually create our own power trio by taking anybody and everybody that we would like to take from the rock and metal scene. Lots of lots of directions you can go here. I thought, will somebody choose like all lead singers and then just figure out like you have a studio band behind them? Did you actually try to put together a band that could actually have all the instrumentation?
I tried to keep it limited to where we wouldn't need outside.
Yeah, I did
help,
too. But I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do this. Join the Discord. Tell us who your ultimate power trio would be. We know we have a couple of different picks from Chris, it looks like. He left one in the comments, and I think he has one on our Discord. Did Shane chime in on this one?
Yeah, so I text Shane and threw the idea at him, and his first question back to me was living or dead. And I'm like, well, there's really no rule. I kind of plan on potentially making multiple, one that's living, one that's dead, just to kind of, give myself some different options. So before I replied to that, he'd already given me the first one that he had, and it was kind of funny. His first band with no restrictions was Matt Heafy from Trivium on vocals and guitar. Again, great when you have the vocalist who plays guitar. Cliff Burton from Metallica on bass, and Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater on drums. So he gave me that, and then I said, well, I plan on kind of splitting it up and doing like a living one and then one of dead musicians. And he's like, oh, well, if it has to be living, then I'll go Lemmy Kilmister on bass instead of Cliff Burton. I'm like, Shane.
Hate to bring you the one to have to tell him.
I didn't want to have to be the one to tell you this, but Lemmy died quite a few years back. So he instead, pretty good substitution if you have to go with someone living, and he went with Steve Harris on bass with the other two members. So, Matt Heafy, Steve Harris, and Mike Portnoy, not a bad group either.
Not a bad group at all.
His wife actually chimed in with a trio. He threw that at me, Shane's wife, Ashley. There are so many people that, like, when you add them to your power trio, it's like, well, it's obvious because that dude's a legend and can do multiple things. Her trio starts with Paul McCartney on vocals and bass.
It's a good choice.
I mean, that he can play anything, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, I've seen him play piano. And, yeah,
guitar. She has Slash on guitar. It's not a bad choice as well. And I think there are, like, based on my theory of how to pick these, there are several drummers that are just great choices because of their versatility. She went with one of those, and that's Phil Collins on vocals and drums.
Yeah, that would be. I'd have him as well.
If you can have a drummer that can sing, I think that's not a bad call.
For sure. I was torn between him or Don Henley, and I went with Phil Collins. But there are obviously a lot of other.
Both the drummers in my configurations can also sing.
I think that helps.
Yeah.
So, Chris has got a couple different picks for us. Why don't you give us what Chris has chosen?
Let me find the one in the Discord real fast here.
And again, join our Discord. Share with us who your power trio is, as Mike looks up in our Discord what Chris chose for.
Yeah, so Chris's first picks, we have, again, another great choice. Geddy Lee, bass, keyboard, vocals.
Rush.
Can't go wrong there. Oh, man. Prince on vocals and guitar.
Yeah, that's maybe an underrated pick there.
Underrated guitarist, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really cool signature guitar.
I think people would forget. Maybe modern people would forget that he was a great guitarist in addition to being a great vocalist.
Absolutely. And the former Kiss drummer Eric Carr. So can't really go wrong with any of those options.
Yeah.
The one that he threw into the chat, let's see, he's going like an alternative rock route as opposed to maybe classic rock, prog rock, or metal. He's going with Rob Thomas on vocals. Yeah,
that's fair. If you're,
he's a legend.
He is, for sure.
Can't really dispute that. Kim Deal from the Pixies on bass, and John Frusciante on guitar from Red Hot Chili Peppers. So, again, as far as alternative rock, not bad.
He's going to need a drum machine for that group. Or, like he said, suggesting maybe bringing in a touring band, which is okay. Like, you're allowed to do that. But
yeah, for sure. I don't know. If I was going to go the alternative route, I almost feel like I'd have to go with, man, that's a tough one. I didn't really think about breaking it up by subgenre.
Like I said, we don't have to do them all tonight because we can always revisit this topic later.
I feel like I'd want to put Billy Corgan in the band.
Yeah,
as far as alternative vocalist,
he's definitely right up there.
Yeah, definitely unique, and that's great for alternative. So I don't know who else I would throw in yet. I'd have to give that more thought.
Yeah,
but I think he would be one of the, because again, he's a guitarist too, so
That works out really
multifunctional.
well. You said you have 2 picks, living and dead. So what do you have for yours?
Yeah, so for my living one, this is one where I do overlap with Shane. I went with Matt Heafy on vocals and guitar. I mean, dude's a great singer, can sing multiple vocal styles, plays guitar, multifunctional. I wanted a bassist that could sing as well, so I ended up going with Blackie Lawless from Wasp on bass.
Okay.
Different vocal style than Heafy, so that would be kind of interesting. And on drums, I went with Don Henley from the Eagles.
There you go. Like that's a great.
Because now I got all these different vocal options as well as the instrumentation and great songwriting, so I'm set.
Yeah, that's some really good choices there for your living choices.
So for Dead, a lot of good options here. Definitely on guitars and bass. I think there are plenty of legendary Dead guitarists and vocalists and bassists and vocalists. But I went with, on guitars and vocals, Alexi Laiho from Children of Bodom.
Okay.
I mean, great singer, just tremendous guitarist, just virtuoso level, and sad that he definitely passed before his time. On bass and vocals, I'm going with Peter Steele from Typo Negative. You know, why not? No one sings like Peter Steele sings, so
No.
gives my band a unique sound. And on drums, I wanted to go with a drummer that could sing, that was well regarded in the music industry, so I went with Karen Carpenter.
There you go. That's
Alexi Laiho, Peter Steele, and Karen Carpenter. That is my power trio.
that has
of
got
Dead
to be
musicians.
the most eccentric
Absolutely.
power trio. I don't know what their album would sound like, but
no idea.
That would be wild for sure. That's great. Great choices though. Yeah, so I'll sub out because I had Phil Collins as well, but to I had a backup option besides Don Henley, so we'll go with Dave Grohl in that role as the
Okay.
vocalist and drummer. Obviously, first best known as a drummer, and then obviously coming back as a vocalist, but then returning to drums on Queens of the Stone Age. So I can live with that. I feel like we talk about this guy so much on this podcast. I just don't feel like it would be right if I didn't include Alessandro Del Vecchio in my power trio, because he's going to produce this album that we're going to release. In addition to playing on it, obviously he plays keyboards. He can sing as well, so you got a lot of options there. And to me, if I need a guy out in front that's also a great guitarist, I'm going to choose Nuno Betancourt as my third.
Great guitarist.
Great guitarist, great stage presence.
Yeah.
Great vocalist, even to this day. Like, he's just as good as he's ever been. So that would be my choice for my power trio.
No, and if Karen Carpenter just doesn't want to perform with the other two, that's fine. I'll just sub in Neil Peart as drummer.
Sure,
I
that's
think
fair.
You've
got vocalists, so you got.
Yeah, I mean, he can at least write the lyrics. He won't be singing them, but still, that's definitely a talent you want to have.
It's kind of wild that we got all the way to the end before somebody mentioned Neil Peart as an option, because he may be one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. And
when I limited myself to / vocalist, that took him out of the runnings, because there were some other people that I would like to throw in too, but I'm like, no, I'm going to set this limiter on my choices just to come up with a more ridiculous trio.
Well, and on top of that, again, if you only get 3, if you're not going to use a backing band, if you're not going to use a drum machine, you've got to pick 3 people that can do more than one thing to round out your sound. So I think that was, to me, when I was thinking of the idea, that's kind of what I was thinking of, is you needed people that could be multiple pieces of the pie to be able to kind of work out there.
Well, and the other thing is, like with Shane picking Mike Portnoy, every time I thought of him, I would end up coming up with a different person for the band to find out that he's already played with them in a side project. It's just like I had one that was going to have like Billy Sheehan and Mike Portnoy in it. It's like, that exists already.
Yeah.
I would have probably picked a different third person just for the project, but it's like that doesn't feel original because they've collaborated with like Winery Dogs. So
sure.
Yeah, it's just,
this is definitely a topic we'll come back to.
Yeah.
For sure, because there's so many different options as far as putting together. But kudos to Chris for coming up with this idea. Like I said, I feel like it should have been our first power trio, but better late than never. And again, go to the Discord. Let us know who your power trio is. If you've got to come up with a 3-person band of all of rock and metal, you can come up with a living and a dead one. You can come up with different ones for different genres, however you want to do it. We'd love to see what your choices are and you can do that in our Discord. That is going to wrap things up on this edition of the Hard Rock Empire. Great to have you along with us for another Sunday evening. We'll be back with you again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, with another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. We'll be checking out the music of June the 27th coming up next week, so be sure to join us then. Big thanks to Chris for joining us. Big thanks to Shane and Shane's wife for chiming in. Big thanks to Mike, as always, for all the work he does on this podcast. And a big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of the podcast. And finally, a big thanks to you for listening in whenever and wherever you are listening. That is going to wrap things up for this week. We'll talk to you again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.